Welcome to the campsite.
Yep, I'm Tony.
I'm Peggy.
We're two RV industry veterans who travel part-time
in this trailer.
Looking to share big adventures and help you with great tips,
tricks,
and discounts. And we are planning an adventure.
We are planning an adventure. We're going to be leaving in a couple days. The day probably that you hear this, we'll be going to Flagstaff for the Overland Expo in Flagstaff, Arizona.
I have wanted to go to this thing for years. And we're going.
Yeah, and then we'll be home for a few weeks, and then we'll head back out, and we're going on a trip to near Reno, Nevada, and to Northern California to teach some RV basic training classes.
Yeah, and if you've been like, oh, I really want to attend one of those RV basic training classes, we do still have openings in Northern California.
We do. And if you want to organize one,
and
put one together in your area, please reach out. Please give us a call, give us a message, whatever, and we'll figure out how to get a group set up in your area so that we can come and teach for you.
Absolutely. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah.
Unless you're on the East Coast, and then we probably won't see you there.
Well, unless, that's where we schedule a class.
Yeah, absolutely. This week, we're talking myths once again. We've done this once before, and we keep seeing these RV myths and untruths and
just kind of misinformation.
Baloney.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, let's talk about some of the things we've seen and read and heard and whether they're true or not.
Yeah.
One of those is, I can't run my air conditioner on battery power.
That's right. And I don't care how many people, like we literally say, hey, we're running our air conditioner on battery power, and people respond, you can't do that. Well, we're literally doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, like anything, there are a lot of variables, right? It's how much battery, what type of air conditioner, blah, blah, blah. But there are some people who can help you answer those questions, and they happen to be ABC Upfitters, who did the power and lithium system on this trailer. They do power and lithium systems for a lot of Class B RV manufacturers. They do them for Rockwood Flagstaff, a number of companies. ABC will work with you. They'll answer your questions. They'll ask you a bunch of questions. What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? What are your expectations? And they can build a system that really fits your camping style from mild to wild. I think we're a little bit closer to wild, but the ones on some friends of ours are truly wild.
Yeah.
So if that's the kind of high quality system you're looking for, the answers to your questions, no myths, give them a call at
574-333-3225.
That's 574-333-3225. Or on the show notes on every podcast page, we have links to videos and interviews with them and a lot of other resources if you want to just start there or just go directly to the source. It's, of course, up to you.
Other ways, in addition to getting an upfit from ABC Upfitters, other ways to make your air conditioner work on battery power might be to have a generator to keep your battery full, or actually generators you can plug directly your 30 amp in and run your air conditioner directly like that.
Or 50.
Or 50, sure.
Bigger RV.
Right. You can also put an RV soft start on your air conditioner. We did that on our early, I guess.
No, we did that on the first one.
The first one, on this one?
No, this one doesn't have it.
Oh, that's right. This one doesn't have it.
And the reason is,
there's also the option of putting in new technology air conditioners, which are very exciting.
If running your air conditioner more efficiently is the myth you want to bust, it's certainly possible either by modifying your existing air conditioner, which is probably pretty common and relatively inexpensive, or, my gosh, it's windy.
Yeah.
Speaking of air conditioning, we are getting air conditioned. So if you're watching this, hopefully you're not like having to take Dramamine. But anyway, of course, you may have to take Dramamine anyway. You never know. Anyway, of course, there are ways to adapt existing AC units. But boy, there's some new AC systems that are either on the market now or coming on the market that are remarkably efficient and very quiet. Finally, RV air conditioning isn't stuck in the 1970s anymore.
I feel like, the last 5 years we've been we've been moving into the lithium battery technology, and for the next few years we're going to be moving into a new air conditioning technology, and by the time that comes, there will be like no limit. Well, no, there's still those darn water tanks.
That's true. Well, I mean, there is that Israeli company that figured out how to pull water out of the air, but the system takes a lot of battery power, a lot of energy, and it's not cheap. But it's out there.
You've still got wastewater to deal with. But anyway, that's really not one of the myths, because that's for real.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of the myths that we've seen. We see them in Facebook, we see them in forums, we see them at campgrounds, and some of the things that people, unfortunately, sometimes people will legitimately need an answer to the question. And if you get 50% absolutely yes and 50% absolutely no, how do you know which one is right?
Yeah, and it's really frustrating and sometimes even dangerous. So the first one I think we're going to talk about is tires.
Okay, good idea.
So we see a lot of people say, how much should I inflate my tire to? And we talked to Ron Henniger from Goodyear, and we'll put a link to that podcast episode. But basically, all tires on the sidewall, it says what's the most air you can put in the tire. Mm-hmm. When you make an RV tire, any tire for that matter, you don't know exactly what it's going on, right? It could be this 5,600 pound mini light, or it could be that same tire might go on a 4,500 pound trailer or a 6,000, whatever.
Yeah.
So they put the most air you can put in the tire on the sidewall, but they all have a chart that says how much air you should put based on the weight of what that tire has to carry. Mm-hmm. And there are placards on the side of travel trailers and fifth wheels, in the door jambs of motorhomes, a lot of times by the driver, by the cockpit, whatever. There's a placard that will tell you what the recommended inflation pressure is on the tires that came from the factory.
Specifically for the weight of your RV.
Right. That's really the answer, is look at the tire manufacturer's recommendation. They all produce a chart, and this goes back to, you should always know about what your RV weighs, and I recommend scaling it, putting it on a scale, and then you'll have a good idea of how much. And people say, oh, should I inflate differently in winter and summer and blah, blah, blah. No, the tires are designed to, as there's friction rolling down the road, to increase in pressure, and that's why there's that maximum inflation.
Just let me make sure this is right. That maximum inflation is cold inflation. So you test the inflation like before you head out on the road. So it may not be a cold day, it might be a cold day. That's not going to really change it that much. Right.
But you measure it in the morning.
Yeah, you measure it in the morning, and then highly, highly recommend have some TPMS, some kind of tire pressure monitoring system that you can watch from the cab of the vehicle. And yes, the inflation's going to go up. The temperature is going to go up. You don't go and deflate your tires so that your hot inflation is the right number. You do that. You use the cold inflation. You test that before you start driving, because as you drive down the road, things are going to heat up. The pressure is going to go up, and that's okay. That's what they're designed to do.
Yep. And also, another advantage of having a tire pressure monitoring system, especially one that measures the temperature, like this trailer has 4 tires on it. If we see 3 of them have fairly consistent temperatures and one is much higher, then that also is a good reason to have a TPMS.
Right.
It could be an indicator that there's a bad bearing, a bad tire, loose tire. Oh my gosh, we've seen where tires, well, Rich talked about a tire literally flying off his trailer.
Yes, so another part of kind of tire maintenance, we weren't really talking about this, but get that tire changing kit, get that lug torque wrench, and make sure that your lugs are torqued properly. You have to check that kind of right after you get the rig, and then there's some recommendations, and I always think 10, 100, every 1,000. That's kind of how I think of it. check it after 10 miles, check it after 100 miles, check it after 1,000, and then go every 1,000 if things have kind of settled in.
That torque wrench from RVer is something we recommend for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
I use it to put the anode rod back in the water heater, which we'll get to.
Which we're coming up
We're
next.
coming up to. I use it to check the torque on the lug nuts on the trailer and on the truck.
Yeah.
I've put on hitches and they say the bolts are supposed to be this much torque. Well, I know because I have a torque wrench.
Right.
Also on tires, people say, well, how long should RV tires last? Typically, RV tires age out before they wear out.
Right.
The common recommendation is about 5 years from date of manufacture.
So whether you've gone 100 miles in that 5 years, or whether you've worn them out and gone thousands of miles, it's, as Tony said, it's not just about how much wear is on the tire. You know, you could do that penny test and see if there's enough tread left, but after years and years of even not use, just sitting in the sun, just sitting around, they age out, they wear out, the rubber dries, and even if you haven't put a lot of miles on them, it might be time to change your tires.
Yeah, so we have an article, 8 RV Tire Tips, and it shows how to figure out when your tires were manufactured. There are some who say that you could go as many as 7 years. We like 5, but we don't have a diesel pusher where you're going to spend $7,000 on tires. By the way, no, you can get a tire discount through the FRVA.
Oh,
but
that's
anyway,
right.
cheap plug there. But when you replace the tires, typically about 5 years. And so 5 years from date of manufacture. And here's an interesting thing.
Right.
We've seen where, especially at the dealership, a trailer would come in and there obviously, well, not obviously, there are 4 tires on it. And 3 of the tires were relatively recently manufactured. Another one had been sitting somewhere in their warehouse for a year.
Right. So again, it's
Yeah.
not about how many miles you've put on your RV. It's about how long ago that tire was manufactured. Even if it's sitting in a warehouse, it's wearing out. It's aging.
Yep. This is something that frustrates us. We saw a blog post from, we won't mention their names, but a very large RV retailer. And they said when your RV anode rod is down to 75%, replace it.
That is way too quick. That is way too soon. Now, I've seen a lot of people say, I just change it every year regardless. Okay, if that works for you. And they're not super expensive, but on the other hand, why throw away something that's still perfectly usable? I think maybe that that company that wrote that article meant to say replace it. Well, actually, they probably want to sell more anode rods, so they probably meant what they said. But I think a better rule of thumb is when you've used up 75%, when it's about at 25% of its original size, that's when you want to think about changing it.
The big question is, well, how long should it last?
Well, what kind of water are you putting through it? How often do you use it? If you are in a place where there's a really high mineral content in your water, your anode rod is going to, its job is to kind of soak up those minerals, sacrifice itself, get eaten away by those minerals so that that doesn't do that to your actual water heater walls or water heater element, right? And so if you only camp where there's really high mineral content in the water, it might use a couple a year, who knows? If you have really great water quality where you are or what water you use.
Or maybe you have a filter.
Or maybe you have a filter, maybe you don't use your water heater very often. It might last a couple, 2, 3, 5 years.
Yeah.
It just really depends on how much it gets used. And its job is, as I said, to sacrifice itself. So if you have that anode rod and it is sacrificing itself and you check it, you want to flush your water heater once in a while, at least when you winterize or at the end of a season. And if you don't have a season, then just pick a time to do that.
Yeah.
We pretty much camp all year long, but we still have to winterize on occasion. And so we choose that time in the late fall or when we're going to have a break of a couple months, and Tony will flush out the water heater, check the anode rod. And, then we decide if it's time to put in a new one or if we've got some percentage left.
Again, we have an article on StressLess Camping about the anode rod. By the way, I do have a way to insert the anode rod.
Yeah, it's kind of an art form.
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating.
I have described jobs as having various levels of bad words. Putting the anode rod in it can be a 2 or 3 bad word job. And so now what I've learned is I take those blue paper towels that, the windshield towels that I tend to always have, shove one into the socket, and then shove the anode rod. Well, then it's in really, really well. And of course, you put your Teflon tape around the threads, and you can put it in that way. And I always start manually, but then I use my Air Gear tire changing torque wrench to torque that down. And it's also about 40 pounds. So that's what works for me. And it has become a job that actually does not have any bad words. At least not the
usually
super deluxe.
Any swear words left in that job anymore.
So that's my tip.
Which is nice.
Yeah, I'll make a zippy tip about that.
Now, when you're shopping for a new anode rod, and we do carry a backup anode rod, because what if we're in really bad water quality and it's time to change it out? Can you tell?
Without
removing it? No. Okay.
No.
But that's okay, because like I said, we take it out, we flush it, we winterize once in a while. So get a backup, but make sure you get the right size, because there are different ones. And, they're not very expensive, so don't cheap out, because then you're going to be replacing them constantly. And all that means is more shopping, yay, but more junk in the landfill, right? So you might as well just buy the best and cry only once, as Tony says.
And also, a lot of you are like, wait, I don't have an anode rod in my water heater. You're right. A lot of the new tankless ones don't. So
and some brands of
I wish there used to be Atwood water heaters that had a stainless steel tank. I really wish those were still around. But anyway, they're not, and that's the way it is.
Yep. Okay, what's the next myth that we see quite often?
What should I use to lubricate my slide mechanism?
Well, sometimes the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
And do you mean mechanism, or do you mean seals? There are several different kinds of slide mechanisms.
Yeah.
They all require different amounts of maintenance, different types of maintenance, different types of lubrication.
Or no lubrication.
They very much require being used properly. So this isn't really a podcast about slides, but for the most part, don't put it out halfway and put it back in and get, there's some that sort of count cycles. And if you reverse and it loses count, then things are going to get all wacky and out of shape.
Back to the lubrication. So many people will recommend a generic, like they'll go, I use this all the time. And different slide mechanisms need different lubrication, if at all. So a lot of these systems are made by Lippert, which is a huge RV component manufacturer. And they have a really good series on YouTube of slide room mechanism maintenance. And they recommend how to lubricate the different mechanisms and what to use and all of that. But a lot of times the recommendation is don't put anything on there. So rather than go to Facebook and find a lot of wrong answers that could actually wear out your slide mechanism or cause you problems, and it'll always be when you're in a hurry to pack up and you can't bring the slide in. Go to Lippert's YouTube channel, or if you have like a BAL slide, go there and look at what they specifically recommend. While you're there, look at how to manually override your slide. Because if you do have a problem, you will want to know how to fix it. And chances are, if it won't come in and you're late, it'll also be in a campground that has no Wi-Fi. I almost guarantee it.
For sure.
So learn these things before you need these things. Ooh, that should be our slogan.
Learn these things before you need these things?
Yeah,
or as I say in our RV Basic Training Camp, okay, your homework during lunch is to go and figure out what kind of slide mechanism you have and find the page on Lippert that helps you learn about it.
Yep, absolutely. We'll put a link to their channel on our show notes.
Yes.
And we did have someone go, well, where are these show notes? On our website, StressLessCamping.com, there are several tabs at the top, and one is podcast. And each podcast is a number. This is 307.
Yep.
And so there'll be show notes there with links and all of that. We've been doing that for all 307 episodes. So if you go back and find another episode you really like, there'll be notes that are relevant to that too.
Yep.
It's how we roll.
Oh.
Speaking of rolls, what do I need to put on the seals on my slide room? There is not a universal answer to that either. For example, we talked to Rockwood, who made all 4 of our RVs, and asked them what specific things they recommend for the seals on our slide. And we got that recommendation, and so we know. But some, they have specific recommendations that they recommend. Some they don't recommend putting anything on. So it really depends on what the seals are made out of, what the walls are made out of. There's no one answer to this. And so again, look at the RV's manufacturer and reach out to them.
And again, if you use the wrong thing, you could wear out your seal. You could like disintegrate the seal with the wrong kind of stuff on it.
Yeah, you could also cause damage to the walls of the RV.
Yeah.
So, you know who I wouldn't? this is sad to say. You know who I wouldn't reach out to? Your dealer. I mean,
Unfortunately.
it's so unfortunate. We have seen so many myths coming from RV dealers, and we'll get into some of those too. There's no real information path from manufacturer to dealer other than the salesman from the manufacturer coming around once in a while. And so I've heard more bad advice from RV dealers, and it's truly unfortunate, but that's why we say reach out to the ultimate source, the manufacturer of the RV or the part.
Right. I mean, Facebook is great. Facebook is a great place to be social and to see pictures of your grandkids and to even have discussions about things. But we're just trying to make sure that you understand that not everyone who answers a question on Facebook knows the right answer.
And a lot of times,
and that's scary.
Yeah, the people who answer most emphatically
Yeah.
are the ones who are the most incorrect.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so you talked about the seals for the slide. What about all the other seals? What about all those seals on the roof? Is there what one product do I use?
There's again not one product. There are several let's say rubber roofs on RVs, although they're not really rubber, but rubber roofs. There are several manufacturers of those materials and different materials, and the sealant you use around the outside of wherever there's a hole, like where the air conditioner is and the vents for the tanks and all that stuff, the sealant that you use around there varies based not only on what the roof material is, but also where it is on the roof. So if it's a sloped roof, it might be a different material than on a flat part of the roof.
Right, like on a sloped roof, or for instance, if you want to reseal a window, you're not going to use that self-leveling stuff because its whole job is to go to the lowest point.
Right, and
well,
it'll find
that's the ground if you're sealing a window.
So again, one of the best manufacturers out there in terms of providing sealant recommendations is Winnebago. They're so good about it. I wish everybody would do it like that. But again, reach out to the RV manufacturer and find out what is the wall material, where is the hole, as it were. Like the seal here on this water heater on our RV might be different material than you'd use on your RV or another. So again, don't trust the people in Facebook groups. It's sad to say, or Reddit. I've been on Reddit a lot lately. It's just, I would reach out to the manufacturer. I guess this episode is reach out to your RV's manufacturer.
Right. Use social groups for social things.
Yeah.
Not for learning.
Yeah.
Here's a question that gets asked a lot, and there's not one answer, but what RV gets the best mileage?
When you look at the shape of a passenger car, like let's just, I don't know, a Toyota Camry, right? People all say, oh, the shape of all new cars you know, in the 50s, they all looked different.
Yeah.
They didn't care about aerodynamics in
Right.
the 50s.
Now they all look the same, right?
Yeah, they all look the same because it takes a certain shape to cut through the wind. Have you seen anybody do anything aerodynamic with an RV? It's a barn. You're towing a barn down the road. So no matter what RV you have, it's going to get terrible gas mileage.
Right.
Because it's not so much the weight of the RV. That matters when you're going up and down hills. It's cutting through the wind, which we have plenty of today.
Right.
And that's where you're sucking gas. So if you want to improve gas mileage, slow down because there's just less wind to cut through.
Yeah.
It's that simple. But if you're shopping fuel mileage for an RV, don't waste your time.
Yeah, the general answer kind of is 9 to 12 miles per gallon.
Yeah, and that's a gasser.
If that's the biggest concern to you, then you need to really consider
A pop-up.
whether you want a big RV. Now, a teardrop or a pop-up, those really low profile, and the teardrops are more aerodynamically shaped, those are going to give you a lot better gas mileage, but they're also going to be very small and, you know, a little harder to fit your family of 5 into.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, so here's one I like to see. All RVs are made so cheaply that I got a leak in my roof.
Oh boy. You know, if you look at your warranty, the seals around any breach in the opening that's on the roof, on the walls, that has 0 warranty because it's considered a wear and maintenance item. Sad to say, that's up to you to inspect regularly, and most of the recommendation is every 90 days. And one of the tricks that we use is, as you know, I am the laziest person that you might know. And so what I do is regularly I go up with the stand that we're using to record this right now.
With the camera.
And I take the camera and I record around the roof, and that way I can zoom in and all that and look at all the seals. And that also gives me a record of inspection. So if there is a leak, the RV company can't say, well, you never inspected it.
Right.
Which is what a lot of them will do.
Right.
And so I have those videos that I took of all the seals, and I also am doing my inspection. So that's just one way of doing it. Now, of course, the most ideal is to go up on the roof and look at it yourself. And you're just looking for signs of wear or damage or anything like that. So.
Yeah, little holes in the seal or something like that.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. I was RV shopping, and the dealer at the RV place that I went to said that my RAV4 could tow this Mini-Lite 2506 FK. You
know, towing is purely a numbers game. You could look at 3 of the same, let's pick F-150. 3 F-150s sit next to each other on a dealer's lot. And one might have significantly more towing or cargo handling capability than the other, because trucks are so configurable that some might be optimized for cargo carrying, some might be optimized for a bunch of luxury features. Again, there's no real good source of information. They can tell you, oh yeah, you could tow that, no problem. You know what, know your numbers. It's purely a numbers game. We have a spreadsheet on our website that you can plug your actual numbers in, and you can get your specific numbers from either the truck you have, the tow vehicle you have, or if you're shopping, it's right there in the door, and know the specific numbers. And really, you're going to be more concerned with cargo carrying, because whatever you're towing with carries about 15% of the weight of this thing. And so this thing's 3 tons. Well, 15% of the weight is what, 900 pounds or so? Wait, is that right? 10% would be 3 times 600. Yeah, 900 pounds.
So
I had to take off my shoes to figure that out.
You've probably seen like Ironman competitions or something where like a guy will strap a harness and then tow something like a big travel trailer or whatever. Once you get it rolling, yeah, almost a person can just can pull a travel trailer. It's not only about what can you pull, right? There's what can the transmission handle? How much cargo capacity? Can it stop? Yeah. Right? Can it go uphill?
What is the cooling system
You never see those guys dragging things with their bodies up hills.
Yeah, that's true. or trying to stop it when someone cuts you off on the freeway.
Right.
So yeah,
there's just so many factors in. We see this question over and over and over multiple times every day. I see someone ask on Facebook, what are you using to tow your Mini Lite 2506 FK? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really
doesn't
doesn't.
matter what you're using, what we're using, what he's using. What matters is if the numbers match up. Everyone, and again, you've got those people who say, well, I've been using it like this for 10 years and I haven't had any problem. Well, until you do.
Yeah, my grandma smoked for 20 years until it finally gave her cancer. So
it's not a matter, it's not a comparison. It's not what do you do. This is one of those things. You can ask somebody, how do you organize your cupboards? That's nice information to get some ideas. How do you tow your Mini Lite 2506 FK? That is a numbers game. That is not an opinion, not a popularity contest. That is important to really be scientific about it.
Yep. So anyhow, we have a resource that you can use at our home on the web at StressLessCamping.com. All right, so now that we've got our myths busted, we hope, if you have a spare tire under your RV or in a place that's difficult to get to, our friends at RVer made a gadget, and it's basically just an extension, and you put it on the Schrader valve on the spare tire and run it out to a place that's convenient for you to check the air pressure on your RV, on your truck, on whatever. And it's a great, inexpensive way to do that. And here's the good thing. We're giving one of those away throughout the month of May. Hey,
that
rhymed. So if you are not already signed up for our email newsletter, or if you are, and you reply with, put me in the contest, you'll be in. You don't have to buy anything, just sign up for our weekly newsletter, or if you're already signed up, just reply with, I would like to be in the contest, and one person is going to win the RVer Easy Air tire inflation thing. And let's say if you have a tire pressure monitoring system, as you really should, you're like, well, how do I do that with this? Oh, easy, you just put the sending unit on the end of the RVer Easy Air tire inflation gadget. So it's a neat gadget. It's, if your tire is hard to get to, it's one you're absolutely going to want. You can buy your own, but you might win one. And so that's our gadget of the week, is the RVer Easy Air tire inflation remote thingamajig.
I think that's how it literally says in the notes. Thingy. The thingy. We said earlier that we are getting ready for a trip this weekend, a short trip, and then a longer trip in June. And usually every time we get ready to go on a trip, we make egg bites, and they are super convenient for snacks, really, but for a morning that you want to just get up and get back on the road and you don't want to take a lot of time, you don't want to cook. We have the egg bites that we can just take, eat them cold, or pop them in the microwave for a couple minutes.
Which we can run on battery power.
Which we run on battery power. It's been a few years since I shared that recipe. It's been on our website all that time, but just kind of jump back a little bit and remind you about the egg bite recipe. And as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to go in and make some egg bites for this weekend's trip. We won't make it as far into Arizona as to see our Goofy USA destination from this week.
But we'll probably see a bunch of road signs
when we go to Flagstaff. But if you want to check out our video about our Goofy USA destination, The Thing, you know, we're not going to be putting that in our videos anymore. So go check it out on our YouTube channel, The Thing. Okay, so some time ago, we had a question of the week, and that was to show us your favorite national park or place. And thank you all for the pictures and the ideas. And, you know, I've been taking notes, and if you say why you liked it and it sounds like something we would like, I've been taking notes about that.
So we started collecting finally. And this was Robert Morales's, Traveling Robert's idea. We are building our own personal map of places that you have recommended or that we want to see.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll talk about how we did that. We're using Apple Maps, but it's really easy on Google Maps. So there you go.
So this week, our question of the week is,
If your RV could talk, what would it say about your last adventure?
Yikes, I don't know. Well,
Oh, I know. You left me out under a tornado.
you went and hid and we didn't get you.
Yeah, and I was out in the cold.
Hopefully your RV has really good things to say about all your trips. But you know what? If it's funny now, even if it wasn't funny then, tell the story.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, and you can answer that at our fun and friendly StressLess Campers Facebook group. You can get there from a link on StressLessCamping.com, which is also where you can sign up for our once a week newsletter with all kinds of information that you might need and myths you might bust.
And contests.
Yeah, and contests.
And
that's where you'll
giveaways.
sign up for the tire air gear
Thingy.
Yeah.
If you do sign up for that newsletter, please know that we just use it once a week to send you a newsletter. We don't sell it. We don't give it away. We don't spam you. We don't write more than once because we don't have time.
Right.
So just sign up and we'll remind you every Thursday morning that there's a new podcast to listen to.
That's the whole idea, right? You can find the show notes for this, episode 307, at our home on the web at StressLessCamping.com. Look for the podcast tile, and this is episode 307.
You can also look for our favorite, what's it called? Our favorite products and services tile. And that's where you will find the products that we know and love, and some of them even have discounts.
Of course, we're in all the social places, but again, you can start at StressLessCamping.com and get to those with links on just about any page. And if you don't want to miss a future episode of the StressLess Camping podcast,
It's free.
what? Yeah, free to subscribe on any podcast service, or you can check it out on StressLessCamping.com.
We are saving you a seat around our virtual campfire.
And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, like and share and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Thank you for being here once again this week. We hope you are out camping because the weather's getting pretty good, even though it's windy
Even if
here.
it's a little windy right now.
Yeah. And with that,
Stressless camping.